Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm here today to share with you how to create this box from scratch that I had just shared. This beautiful altered box that I had picked up over at Dollar Tree, and I figured it out on how to create it from scratch. It's pretty simple. I did have to replace this this center box because the other one that came with it, the paints kept chipping off, as I had explained in my previous video. So if you're new to my channel and you have not seen that video, I will put the link down below in the description box. So I did get a few requests to create one, so I'm going to do that from scratch. So what you will need is you will need a brown paper bag, a sheet of brown paper bag. You could recycle the ones that you have. Also, out of this, I'm going to cut a square, so that's why I have this little one out. So you will need a brown paper bag. You will also need 2 pieces of lightweight chipboard, your scoring tool, your scoreboard, a pencil, pair of scissors, and also a paper trimmer. I have a bulky one, so that's why I don't have it here on the table. So you will need a paper trimmer, and also you will need the glue. Now I'm only going to show you how to create the box and how to construct the box. As far as embellishing it, painting it, and all that, you could refer to my video down below. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started. So the box itself is 6 by 6. The box is 6 by 6, and then it's about 1 3/4 inch high. All right. So the basic math to do this is that you add the 6 by 6, the middle, and then you need to add the additional inches on all sides. So it's the side is 1 3/4 inches, so that would be 3.5 inches on total that you would have to add on top of the 6 inches. So it would be 9.5 inches wide by 9.5 inches high is what the bottom box would be. So you will pull out your paper trimmer. I will put the measurements down below as well on the description box. So you pull out your paper trimmer and you go ahead and you trim out your paper at 9.5 inches. Let's see, 9.5 by 9.5. Make sure you measure twice and you cut once. Okay. Now for the bottom, you will score at 1 3/4 inches. So I've already trimmed up my paper. It's 9.5 inches, 9.5 inches. So you will score at 1 3/4 inches here. Make sure you score straight. And what I do to make it easier so I score correctly on all sides, I flip it and I score at 1 3/4. That's easier for me because I am so measurement challenged. Flip it again, score 1 3/4. Flip it again, score at 1 3/4. So now your centerpiece right here should measure 6 inches. Now, let's go ahead and pull out my ruler. I did not pull out my ruler to verify. Okay. So it is exactly 6 inches. Okay? So, all right, now you fold all the ends, all your scoring lines, you fold and fold and burnish so everything is folded well. Okay, so now it will look like this. Now you have to create little notches in order for it to fold correctly and create a box. So I am going to trim out just one side of the notches right here. Where's my scissors? I just had them. Alright, I have an extra pair here. So you go ahead and trim it out here. And what I do is I go up to the scoring line, and then this little notch right here, this little scoring line right here, I trim that off to an angle. Just so the box will close right and it's not bulky. Actually, it was supposed to, let's see. Okay. Again, you trim, go up to the scoring line, and the little notch you trim it to an angle. Alrighty, you do that on all sides. Okay, right here. One. Okay, so let me trim this out a little bit more. I don't want it to stick out, and I still see a partial of that scoring line. Okay. So now you're going to glue over here on these little flaps like this. And you see, when you trim off that scoring line, nothing peeks out. So let's go ahead and start gluing that. Make sure that the edges meet. You don't want to push this in too far in. You just want to make sure that this edge meets with this other end. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and glue this other flap. Trim this little part off. Got a little, okay, cleaned it up a little bit. Now this other flap is the last one that you're going to glue. Okay, so here is your box, the bottom portion. So the sides are 1 3/4 high, and the inside is 6 inches. And this is how the box will look once done. Okay, so we got the bottom base done. Now let's start to do the lid. Okay, so now we are going to make the lid, and the lid is going to be a little bit bigger, so we are going to cut at 9 5/8 on both sides. So it's going to be 9 5/8 and 9 5/8, and 9 5/8 is the second line before the 3/4. So yeah, so let's go ahead and go to 9 5/8. So it's 2 lines before the 9 3/4 mark. Alrighty. Again, 2 lines before. I like to measure twice, cut once, because I've done a lot of cutting already. Okay. Now we are going to score at 1 3/4 all the way around. So the center of the lid will be 6 1/8. So now let's score at 1 3/4 all the way around. Let's make sure that the center measures 6 1/8, and it sure does. Okay. Now let's go ahead and fold. 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 Now let's start to trim. Okay, now that we have everything scored, before we start trimming off the little before we start creating little notches here, we want to create a template in order to make this notch right here, to cut this out, this portion out, to make it into a gatefold. And also we have to trim this in half before we can start gluing the lid, constructing the lid. So you're going to need scrap cardstock, or if you have chipboard, whatnot, you'll need a scrap of that, and you are going to cut it at trim it at 3 1/2 by 3 1/2 square. So we are going to trim this. Let me make this more even. Okay. So it's going to be 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. Alrighty, so here is a square of 3 1/2 and 3 1/2. Then we're going to trim this off. We're going to cut it in half from point to point. I'm going to use my smaller paper trimmer. So make sure the point is matched up in the cutting line, and there. So you have 2 triangles. So now what we're going to do is we are going to lay this right in the center, right inside the box, and we're going to trace off this point right here. Okay, so trace it off, and then you could cut it with your scissors, or if you can't cut straight, then you could use your paper trimmer. So you trim that off. All right, you grab your lid, and you are going to lay this Let's see. Let me fold this in half. Fold it in half like this, because I actually prefer just trimming a little bit. Okay, so make sure it's in the center. So if you have a mat, I'm folding it again half right here. So I'll make sure that it's in the center of the box. So I'm creating a score line so I can match my score lines. So once you create your little triangle, trim off the top, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again. So that's your scoring line. Alrighty. And we are going to, let's see, I'm going to measure this. Okay, so right here is the center. So try to find your center. Okay, so I got my scoring line centered with the center of my mat, and I have this centered in my mat. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say. And then just trace it. Just trace it out. And I'm doing the same thing on the top side. Make sure it's centered. And I'm just tracing this. Okay, so now we are going to trim this in half, the lid. Okay, so this measures 9 by 5/8, and now we're going to cut it at 4 13/16, which is a line after the 3/4 mark. So 4 13/16, and that's your half. Okay. So it will look like this, and that's half. Okay, so now before we glue the flaps, we have to trim off our little markings, what we traced out. On all of them, on two sides. Okay. Alright, so now we can go ahead and trim this, cut up to the up to the scoring line. Do that on the other side. Same thing on this one. On the other side. Now we're going to glue, and when we glue, we're going to have to trim that off. Okay, so now we're just going to glue at an angle since we're going to trim that off. Just the top portion. Okay. Okay. Now let's go ahead and trim that off. One part of the lid. Now let's do the same thing with the other one. On the other side. So we're going to trim that off. So now this is how it looks. It looks like this. Looks like that. Okay. So when you put it in the box, it looks like that. So when you're gonna open it, it opens as a gatefold like this. In order for that to happen, now we need to create let's see, the bottom portion of the bottom. You need to create something to what's the term? An attachment to the lid so it can open as a gatefold. So we're going to create an attachment to it. Okay. So what you will need is, since the box is, the bottom portion is 6 inches by 6 inches. And so we're going to add an inch on both sides. So it's going to be, we're going to do 8.5 inches to be the safe side. So we're going to add 8.5 inches wide by 6 inches high. Okay. So let's go ahead and get our paper trimmer. I need my big one because this paper bag is pretty big. So I'm going to trim this off, make it even. Okay, so now I am going to, let me take this portion off. Take this portion off too. I'm gonna make this even too. Okay. So I am going to cut it at 6 inches. And I am going to cut it at 9 inches. So it's going to be 6 by 9. Alright, so now I'm going to grab my 6-inch box, the bottom portion, and I'm going to find the center of it. And before you begin to do this, you want to pause the video. If you want to start painting and everything and decorating, just make sure you don't paint the bottom portion because it's going to be covered by this. So just paint the sides just to make it more easier if you wish. It's up to you. That's what I did on the other one. Before I added the lids, I went ahead and I painted the box first. So actually, okay. So actually let's trim this a little bit more, about 1/8 of an inch. That's on the 6-inch side. Because it's sticking out a little bit. Okay. Alright, now it doesn't stick out anymore. So, alrighty. So here's my score lines. And these little flaps measure about 2 inches on both sides. This side is 1 5/8. Actually, it's 1 1/2 each. It's 1 1/2 on both sides. Alrighty, so okay. Trying to put this evenly. Now, to make it easier for me, what I did is I went ahead before I attached the box, I made sure to attach one of the lids first. So I went ahead and I glued this flap, and you glue it in the inside of the lid, like this. So you glue it this way. So you glue it in the inside of the lid, and you just add your glue on the flap, on the back side of the flap. And you glue it to the inside of the lid. Be sure that it's centered. And you could paint if you wish. You could paint right here. That's what I did on mine. I painted it so you can't see. Before I attached the box, I painted this side, and I also painted on this side, and then I added my box in the center. Okay, so now there's your lid. It closes like this, and here is your other flap. So what I do now is I go ahead and I add glue to the bottom of the box, and I attach it here to this attachment. I should have actually done it the other way, the print in the inside. So I might have to add paper there. Either way, I'm going to color it black, and when you color it black, it's you can't see. Let's see, it's like this. Okay, so it closes nicely. Now here is the other flap. Let me burnish this a little bit more. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add glue to this flap right here. Make sure you center it. Close the lid, so you want to close the lid so it adheres and the lid will close nicely. And now burnish it. Yeah, voila. This is how you create a gatefold box. It may not look exactly like the Dollar Tree one, because I made it's got more of a point up here, and this one is more of a flat top. So, but at least you get the idea, and if you could do anything you want, any way you want to. But this is just the basic construction on how to create a gatefold box. So yeah, so now it's ready to just get decorated. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I explained everything very clearly. I will put all the dimensions down below in the description box, and I would love to see your boxes. If you do create one, please comment with a link down below, or you can send me a private message with a link to your video. I would love to check it out and get inspired by you as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.